You're listening to Cash and Sass. I'm Lisa Marie, your go-to gal for all things money. As the Sassy Wealth Queen and the brains behind the Sassy Wealth Coach, I'm here to take you on a thrilling ride from the financial chaos to sassy and sexy money. Hey, my sassy friend, welcome to another episode of Cash and Sass. I am Lisa Marie, the Sassy Wealth Queen and the brains behind the Sassy Wealth Coach. And today with me, I have Elizabeth Miles. Elizabeth Miles is an authentic marketing consultant and transformational life coach on a mission to help others learn how to dance through the fear while moving towards their dreams. She is the author of This Is Where You Pivot, the shift from fear to freedom, the host of the Power to Pivot podcast, and editor of March 4th, the magazine. I absolutely love the phrase of to dance through fear while moving towards your dreams, because I may have to steal that because that actually, or borrow it, I should say, that actually in a lot of ways goes into what we're going to talk about with money and entrepreneurship and making those decisions. So welcome and thank you for being on my show. And we're just going to dive into these candid conversations about money, which that's what Cash and Sass is all about. In your forum, you were talking, and one of the things that stuck out with me, and I asked you right before we started if you were willing to have the conversation, is one of the most defining or impactful money experiences was you declaring bankruptcy. Can you tell the listeners and me when was that and how did it impact you?
So first of all, thank you so much for having me on the show today. I really, really appreciate it. Mm-hmm. And yeah, so back in, this was 2009, I think it was discharged. So it's been a little bit of time, but it was a place where I didn't feel like I had any other alternatives. I felt very out of control with where I was financially. And it was an experience that it caused a lot of shame and guilt. And there was a lot to work through there in terms of money and feeling like I couldn't control my money, even after the fact. You know, how do you rebuild from that? How do you come back from a bankruptcy and feel successful? Even it was 2016 when I launched my first business. And even at that point, there was a lot of fear because of having gone through the bankruptcy and not knowing if I knew how to manage money properly. So credit card debt was involved. I did lose my house as a result of the bankruptcy. So it was a very dark place.
Yeah, and I love that you're willing to share that. And I told you before we started that we had something similar in common. Well, we actually have two things in common now. I filed bankruptcy, Chapter 7 bankruptcy in, let me think. Okay, my oldest was born in 2003. So it was discharged in 2002. I have decided that the God and universe and source I decided God had a huge sense of humor because we filed it in 2001, it discharged in 2002, and literally 6 months later, we found out we were pregnant. My daughter was born almost a year to the day of it being discharged. No joke. No joke. And I'm sitting here going, I can't manage my money. I just filed bankruptcy. I lost my house, which means we had to do a foreclosure because there was no money. We lost everything, right? We had to file. It was right around the time when the fiber optic market crashed. And so my spouse had lost his job. I was in my we were early 20s. So I was barely making like $19,000. You can't go from 80 to 19 and pay the bills, right? And there were other circumstances in there. We didn't know how to manage our credit card debt. We didn't know how to manage. We weren't taught those things. And I tried and I didn't get it right a lot of times, right? Which is so funny because everybody will go, but wait a minute, you're a wealth coach. Yeah, I learned the hard way. And what makes me different is I'm the same as a lot of people. There are a lot of mistakes. I didn't come from wealth. I created my own wealth. And it was through those mistakes that I did. And so I love the fact that you're willing to share that, because I guarantee you we're not alone. You and I aren't the only ones that have made some of those money decisions that may not have been the best money decisions to make. And because of that, we ended up having to do foreclosure, bankruptcy. I joke, a lot of my vehicles were those, buy here, pay here things. Or I probably had more vehicles repossessed than I really want to admit in my
It
lifetime.
happens. I mean, same here.
It's right. And like what you said, then when you go to I started my business in 2016 as well. So it's three things we have in common. So when you go to do that, you're like, "Okay, can I really do this? Can I manage it? Do I know?" Because I didn't start my journey of the deep dive into the money stories, money mindset, and changing how I manage my money and how I look at money until I started
Yep.
my business. So even after all those mistakes, now I learned a lot about the credit card, and I saw on here you were saying that that fear of your credit and the credit score, and I learned the easiest way, the fastest and easiest way to increase your credit score, and also the easiest and fastest way to destroy your credit card is this or credit score is the same thing.
Yep.
It's
Yep.
credit cards.
Oh, yeah.
Credit cards. Whether you get one and you pay it consistently and your debt to income ratio is low with those, but you have a high available credit, boom, your score is going to go up. The minute you start not making those payments and you've got more debt on the credit card, score is going to go down. And it's annoying, right? Because you can watch it go and it goes down, it seems faster
Oh,
than it
and it's
goes
so
up.
much harder to bring it up it's back up, it seems. Like, no matter what, you feel like you're spinning in this cycle of, "Holy crap, how do I get this score
Yeah.
back up?"
A- and and it can be done because and I tell people all the time, I think that's one of the things that we have to be mindful of is monitor our credit, right? Because there's people out there who will steal your credit and all, and at the same time don't obsess over it. I still have to remind myself of that. What was one of the pivotal changes that you were able to do? Well, let me ask you this. When you filed the bankruptcy, how- eh, w- you probably didn't immediately change your money story then, right? Were there some things that you tried to do and then maybe some learning that you had to learn in order to change it?
Yes. So that's a really good question. So after I was afraid of money, like I almost went the opposite direction and just we're not going to spend any money. We're not going to spend any money. We're not going to spend any money. And don't get me wrong, like there's a place for saving and conserving, but you also have to live your life. Um and
Mhm.
when I got to the point of the business, that was like I was playing small because I was afraid to invest in the business. And really, when I look back and think about it, it's really what I was doing for myself personally as well. There was the fear, like I would put money in envelopes, and each envelope would be for a specific thing, and I would only spend that money on that thing. Did not use credit cards for a really long time after that. Um, Money and I just did not, we weren't meshing. And it still took, we
We
did
didn't get
not get
along.
along. It still took, well, okay, 2016, 2017, 2018 until I started to settle back into like a manageable discomfort with money. Uh, and really, because I had to make the choice. I remember sitting, my first business was a bakery business, and I was so afraid to invest that it caused me to not want to invest in the proper packaging, the proper labeling. It was really devaluing the brand because of that. And I remember very clearly sitting in the kitchen, throwing money away, throwing food away left and right, and going, I never want to feel this way again. And at that point, a lot of the money stuff started to come up, and I had to face it. And I had to let myself get a little uncomfortable and be open to that coaching and be open to learning and be open to investing in both myself and my business. And it
Yes.
was not easy, but it was needed if I was going to keep going.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's nothing easy about it. And it's easier when it's done with someone who understands and can hold you accountable and can help you through those times when it gets really hard and you just want to like go bury your head in the sand and like this just isn't working. Because again, just like fitness or anything else, it doesn't work overnight. It does not change overnight. I can't stress that enough. I'm a wealth coach and I've had my business for 7 years. And I started working on my mindset when I started my business. And I'm still working on it. It is a daily work in progress, especially when you go to up level and make big investments, because that's when that little, I call it the little inner, mine's a gremlin. She's a gremlin. The little gremlin starts talking to me and, reminding me of these money decisions and, really, do you want to do that? You're just right where you're okay. You really want to go do it. You're going to end up, all the stories. They're just stories. And what we have to do is we have to learn to go into that toolbox of ours, whether it's affirmations, journaling. I'm learning embodiment to just dance all those feelings out. That's one of the ways I'm working on those things, because as I'm up leveling, they're coming up more. So I need some new tools to help me. And I think it's really important that we have them. Because just one of the things you said is like, I think one of the things you talked about was that it was easy to get stuck in the spinditis with business, and that ends up being almost as bad as how we were spending personally, right? Because I found myself in that same situation. Like, it wouldn't be necessarily all the big investments, but we were investing in all the small
Yep.
things because, okay, I'm not spending as much money, so I'll go and invest this and this is going to help me. But then we would get stuck. Then we realized we spent, hundreds of dollars and actually end up spending a whole lot more than what we'd probably spent if we just invested in the one big
Yep.
thing. I don't know if anybody else. That's what happened to me. And then you end up on this vicious hamster wheel of talking bad to yourself because you spent all this money and you could have done something, different, and really was the offer good for you,
Yes.
right?
And it's interesting because as you're talking, I'm reminding myself of the grocery store was my demon place. I would go grocery shopping. I would have my list. I would meal plan for the week. I would get everything that we needed. And then I'd be ready to go to the checkout line and I would almost panic and I would start pulling things out of my cart. Well, I didn't need this. I would start the mind trick of um telling myself all the things I really don't need to get that bill down lower and lower and lower. And the vicious cycle for me was then I would leave feeling defeated, depleted, frustrated, angry. Like it just was this vicious cycle because I also had kids. I'm like, I gotta feed my family. And it just kept feeding that story. But if at the
Mhm.
time, if I let myself just buy the things I needed, I also felt scared and trapped and out of control. So it was a very it's a
Yeah.
little demon for me.
Yeah, I mean, it's a vicious cycle, and one of the things that I think it's important, but one of the things you said is what was bad for me with the grocery store is if I took one of my girls with me. Oh Lord, they are not allowed to go to the grocery store with me. Um, and or I went without meal planning or with a list. And if I did not go once a week. So I've made changes. We now have a list a notebook that is specific for a grocery list, and it's at the end of the table. And when you take the last thing, you need to write it down on that list. If you don't write down that list and I miss it when I'm checking, it doesn't get bought and we don't go back to the grocery store for a week. We go either every Saturday or every Sunday, but we don't go back because what was killing us is we were going midweek to go get a couple of things and we were spending $50 to $75 for, because then we'd start grabbing things, right? I found that as long as it was on that list and as long as I stuck to that list and I went once a week, I was able to stick to, and I still do that. Because every single time every single time something happens and we don't go once a week, the bill goes. Like the average of what I spend in a month goes up, never fails. As long as I do once a week and I keep that list, and my girls have gotten in the habit now, they'll either say, "Hey, mommy, you're right. But will you write this down? I just used the last one," or they'll go and write it because I've told them if it ain't on there, I'm not getting it. It has to be on the list or I'm not getting it. Because when you and eat before you
Oh,
go to the
yes,
grocery store.
please.
That's the other thing. Eat before you go to the grocery store because guaranteed you will subconsciously want to buy everything because you're hungry. Never fails. And those are just small little things, right? That we want to make sure because especially today, the grocery prices are even higher than what you and I are talking about in 2000, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And I didn't start doing the once a week thing until I want to say about 3 years ago. I want to say it was right around, actually, it was before COVID. And then COVID made me get like really big on the list. If it wasn't because one, I didn't like waiting in line that long. Two, I didn't like wearing the mask in the grocery store. So I had a list. I went and got my stuff
Yep.
and I left. I was in and out. Like, matter of fact, I no longer step foot in Walmart. COVID cured me of ever going into Walmart. I will order it and have it delivered, but I won't step foot in Walmart because I refuse to wait in line that long. It cured me of it. But there are things that we can do to make things slightly easier. And I love the fact that you said, the meal planning. Do you find now that it's easier for you to go into the grocery store when you have your list and you're doing your meal planning and you're able to remind yourself, okay, I've done everything I can do to keep it down to the cost I need to? Because again, we have no control over the cost of
Right.
food.
And yes, it's so much different now having gone through the mindset work. And like you said before, that work is ongoing. It doesn't stop. When we do up level, it's going to bring up new devils and new demons, and you end up cycling through some of your same core wounds just in a different way. But um the list now, money, there's still, some stickiness with it, but it's I know I can be in control and I get to choose my reality with money, and it doesn't have to be that same story. So it's a completely different world now.
I like that I can choose my reality with money. I tell people all the time, and I remind myself of that. You can choose your reality with money, which is the same way I say it. I just say it in a different way. You can choose your money story. You can write your money story. A story is just a story. It's like a book. Turn the page. If you don't like it, if you don't like that chapter, turn the page and write a new one. Now, yes, in some ways that's easier said than done, and it still can be done. You're Elizabeth Harris with living proof, and I'm living proof, which I guarantee you we're not the only ones. Um, One of the things that you talked about and or mentioned in your thing, and I really want to get on is one of the biggest money mistakes you said that you had was that money made you successful, the belief that kept you turning into a circle and left you wiped out. Basically that you thought money was what defined or created your success. Can you explain that, and what did you learn from that?
Oh, yes. That taught me that you have to work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to be successful and make money. And that, in fact, is not the case. That is a recipe for burnout and disaster. Um, I grew up equating the money in my bank account with being successful. And again, going back to that first business, it wasn't about the money. I had to remember why I was doing what I was doing, and that was what made me successful. I had a vision for a cafe. I had a vision for a community-centric atmosphere. I had a vision where I was teaching people about food and cooking. And once I stopped focusing on the money, not that I had to take my eye off the game, because as an entrepreneur, and as you know, we're running all the facets of the business. So I still had to have an awareness of money and understand where it was coming in and where it was going out. But I had to shift my focus to why I'm serving and how I want to serve. And once I was able
Mhm.
to do that, I recognized that my success was not determined by the amount of money in my bank account. It was based on how I was showing up and the value that I was bringing to my customers. And when I will never forget the day I opened my storefront and I had a mom and her daughter come in, and the little girl was going to be 5 years old. They were going to do a birthday party with me. She had waited for us to open because she wanted to have her birthday party with us. And that was why. And that was a motivator for me to remind myself to not freak out when the money didn't look a certain way. That 5-year-old little girl and all of her friends, and we just had the biggest, best birthday party, like bonanza you could ever imagine. um, that was what I wanted to do. And I could define my success a different way. I got to choose that for myself. And it's something that I'm passionate about helping other people realize, like we get to write these stories. We get to choose for ourselves.
Yeah, exactly. You're a transformational life coach, so, you know, the fact that you help people, dance through I love that, dance through the fear. I love that. I absolutely love that. But dance through the fear moving towards their dreams, you're showing them that they don't have to do their business or their life a certain way to or let me rephrase that, a way that everybody, including our society, tells us we need to do it. And I love that because one of the things I tell people all the time, I help women entrepreneurs create, retain, and expand wealth, whether you come from wealth or not. My mission is to help women realize that they can stand on their own 2 feet, whether they come from wealth or not. They can create it, retain it, and expand it. And it doesn't have to be done the way society tells you it has to be done. It doesn't have to be done how I did it. It doesn't have to be done the way Elizabeth did it. It can be done your way. Now, would it take shorter or longer? Hell, it could take shorter than it took for me. It could take longer. It and it doesn't matter because to me, excuse me, part of creating wealth to me, part of being wealthy is having the freedom to live my life on my terms the way I want to live my life. You know, I could be in corporate and not be quote unquote wealthy. Um, I could be in corporate and work make 6 figures. Still would not be wealthy because it comes with balls and chains. For me, it wouldn't be wealthy because it comes with balls and chains because I'd have to ask permission to take time off. I'd have to make up the hours anytime I took time off. And that took freedom away from me being there for my girls when I needed to be. So that's one of my important things in being wealthy. And so I think it's really important, how you said that. What's one of the, What's one of the limiting beliefs that you had when it came to money, your story, that you were able to shift when you worked on your money mindset?
Oh, that's a very good question. That I'm not worthy of it and that I can't have it because I'm not worthy. I'm not good enough. Um, and actually, okay, well, now you just open a big can of worms. But the the work hard is a big one. And it's not to say that building a business is easy and doesn't take hard work, but there's a difference between showing up as an active participant and working in the business and on the business in a productive way versus spinning your wheels and being busy for busy sake and just constantly go 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 go. There has to be a balance between the two because eventually you're going to run out of gas. And when you hit that burnout,
Mm.
that is a place where it is even harder to create, it is even harder to produce. And so I guess
Mhm.
all of those limiting beliefs sort of go hand in hand because if I know if I hit a certain point where I'm getting burnt out, those limiting beliefs of I'm not worthy and I can't do it will creep back in because I'm so burnt out I can't produce as the way I want to show up.
Right. And do you find, I found that my limiting belief was I wasn't worthy, and in order to be worthy, I had to work hard. And if the money wasn't coming easier, as easily as to everybody else, that meant I had to work
Oh yeah.
harder, and I wasn't as worthy. And so that ended up being a vicious cycle on its own as well, right? Um, excuse me. Um, and I think it's important. What's one of the things that you did to shift that?
So it has taken a long time um to claim and settle into being worthy me being worthy for who I am and settling into who I am and what I'm here to do and what I choose to do. Um, I very much want to live a life, like you said, on my terms. I want to create that life that is comfortable and cozy and help people in the way that I want to make the impact. Um, I couldn't do that without settling into my voice first. And so one
Mhm.
of the things that understanding and recognizing the power to pivot in and of itself has been a defining point for just about every area of my life because I know that at any given moment I can stop and pause and way that I have been able to change the story of my life.
Right. Eh, how does it feel now that now that you, let me back up. How does it feel now that you've changed your money story?
A lot more free for sure. It's a lot more fun. I allow myself to dream and dream big and settle into that feeling of the big dream, big goals, travel, the luxury. I'm not a camper. I'm not one, I want when I go on vacation, I want, you know, five-star luxury hotel spot. That's me and what I choose. Letting myself feel into that and being open to that and welcoming that. It feels completely different.
Yeah. And one of the things that I did to be able to welcome that is similar to the envelopes that you're talking about. I have multiple savings accounts and they're for specific things. And, I was telling someone um, the other day that like if I choose, I go and buy me a pair of Judy Blue jeans, and they're designer jeans. They're not cheap, but I love these jeans. Like I love them. They've got a pair of hot pink ones that just come out, and I really, really, really want a pair. And I'm going to make sure that the money is in my Lisa spending account before I go and get a pair. And at the same time, tomorrow I may decide I'm going to go to a thrift store or a consignment store or to Goodwill because you can find
Oh
galore
yeah.
treasures in those places at like dirt cheap. Does that make it to where it's any less, how do I put it? Any less nice or no. It means I'm choosing where I want my money to go. And that's the biggest thing because, see, you can overspend at those places too. Okay. Because I've got people in my family who, quote unquote, go to these thrift stores and they buy a bunch of stuff, right? That they probably didn't need because but it was at a thrift store and it was only a couple dollars and they end up spending hundreds and hundreds of dollars. I go with the intention of I'm looking for something specific or I want to sightsee just to see what I can find if there's something that stands out. And then whatever I spend, I do it intentionally and strategically, right? And that's the big key is that being mindful and being strategic and reminding yourself that you're spending based on your values because that's what you're talking about is it being aligned with your values and your goals. And I tell my clients all the time it needs to be aligned because if it's not, it's not going to
I
work.
love that you
It doesn't matter
Yeah, I
what you
love that
do.
you mentioned that because one of my big spending habits was the 6, 7, $8 cups of coffee at Starbucks. And I realized that it wasn't aligned with my money goals. It wasn't aligned with my health goals. It wasn't aligned with how I wanted to support business in my community. Like, does that mean I can't have really good coffee? No. I can choose where I'm going to put that in a way that I feel more more aligned. I feel better about my choice. And it it gives you more of a sense of control and no hit to Starbucks. They do have great coffee, but I choose to put my money into small local roasting companies. We have several of them here close to where I live and I want to support that small business, that mom and pop that and I have a completely different experience. That's what I want to support. Um and I get really great coffee. It's a bonus. I also recognize that from a health standpoint, I can limit. I choose to feel good. If I drink too much coffee, I get very bad inflammation. From a health perspective, why do I want to spend $50 a week on coffee when I know that it
When you're gonna feel
Yes,
horrible
I
the
would
rest of the
much
week.
rather feel good in my joints and my bones and have energy to do the things I want to do. And so thinking about it from that perspective has allowed me to make choices and commit to those choices so that I can feel more aligned in what I'm doing. And it's not saying I can't have the things I want, but I can choose to do it in a different way.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the big thing is that you're choosing what's aligned with your values and your goals. So therefore it's a mindful decision. And I can't stress enough when it's a mindful decision, I don't care if it's $5, $50 or $5,000. As long as it's a mindful decision and you've looked at it and said, "Yep, this is what I want to do," and you're doing it from that place, then do it. It's got to come from that place. And if that means putting something on a credit card, and I'm going to go ahead and say this, as long as you are looking at it strategically and you say, okay, especially if it's got like a 0% interest, okay? Because that's what a lot of people do. Oh, I just put it on 0% interest. Okay. Do you have a plan to pay it off? No, I'll worry about that later. Uh-uh. Because that's going to catch up with you. And then you're going to end up on the hamster wheel beating yourself up because all of a sudden you forgot how long you had. Then you've got this high interest that all of a sudden got tacked on. So, what I tell people is you got to do it with a plan. Okay. And I don't mean overanalyze it. I mean, if you've got 6 months, take what you purchase, divide it by 6, and that tells you the minimum you need to include in your money roadmap to have that thing paid off within 6 months. If it's low enough to where like, oh, I can pay more than that, then you up it to what you can do, but you know the minimum amount. If it's 18 months, you divide it by 18, unless you want to pay it off earlier than 18 months. But again, when you divide by 18, that's telling you the minimum because I had to do that. I have a Firestone credit card. And if anybody knows about Firestone, um, you get 6 months. So, like when you have something go with your wrong with your vehicle and they fix it, if it's over, I don't know, I think it's over $250, you get 6 months to pay it off. And I had, I think mine was, I don't know, $1,300, $1,400, something like that. And I did just what I'm talking about doing. I divided it by 6. Okay, this is the minimum I need to pay to have it to where I don't have to pay the interest. And so I think that's really important. It's coming from that mindful place and it being aligned with your
And I
goals.
think too, there's with the mindfulness component, being aware of the need versus the want. And, the Firestone, we have a Firestone card too. And I need my car to be able to do the things I want to do. And are you okay? So I need to be able to have my automobile. Versus maybe I put off buying where I was at a store a couple of months ago and they had these really beautiful glasses. And I'm like, I really, really love them. I don't need them right now, but I really, really love them. When you compare the two, there also needs to be a mindfulness component of what do I need right now versus can I come back and get this later? And I've been able to sit in the it'll be there. And if it's not there when I come back, something else and better will be in its place. But I also know I need my car. So I have to work the
Mm-hmm.
plan out to be able to live my life.
Yeah, because your car needs to be fixed. That's a necessity now. The pair of glasses, is something you can save for. And if you have that same as account of, Elizabeth spending, if there's money in that and you don't have to borrow from that to help with the vehicle type thing, right? Then you get it. If not, you go, okay, there's not enough money in there, but I can save for it and I can make sure I'm still taking care of my car now. I tell people all the time, yes, it's important to save for what I call rainy day emergency, but I like calling it rainy day. I don't like saying emergency. Um, it's my mindset thing. I would rather say rainy day. And I like having different accounts for specific things. So, like my vehicle, because I know tires are going to be replaced. So, instead of having just one rainy day account, I have several same as accounts along with the rainy day for specific things. So, I have an account for my girls. So, when they need school supplies or when they need something, it comes out of that account. There's money that's in there for that. Then I have healthcare. So that's for those copays or prescriptions that, we fill every 90 days, whatever, right? That's also towards to go have a little extra in there towards the deductible. So if something major does happen, because hello, most of us have this high deductible. Do I have my entire deductible in there? No. I do have money in there though. You know what I mean? And so it's important um, to have that. Like one of the things is I go to a specialist sleep doctor 4 times a year. That's $100 copay. Okay. It's every 3 months. It's easier for me to put so much money in there every month to get to that $100 and have it in there than it is for me to come up with it every 3 months just out of the budget. So that's included in the amount that goes into that account each month so that when I have to pay the $100, guess what? I have it. I don't have to figure out where it's coming from, right?
It gives you so much more
So those are
freedom.
really
Oh
important
yeah,
things.
like just the
It takes stress
yes.
off
Oh
of
my
me.
gosh, just the ease and the frustration, you can sort of melt that stress away because you don't have to worry about it.
it plant there people are like, well, I'll just figure it out. And I'm like, but if you make a plan, and know that you may have to tweak it, but if you make a plan, then later you don't have to worry about it, especially when life happens, because hello, life is going to happen, right?
At the times you least expect it.
And it's going to happen when you least I was gonna say. When you least expect it. And a lot of times it's going to happen when you're in the middle of trying to up level. Because that's what happened with me in the last like 4 or 5 months is life happened a couple of times in the middle of me working on up leveling. And so being And I've had to tweak my money roadmap, right? And I've also had those accounts though that have been my saving grace. If I wouldn't have had money in those accounts for specific things, I would have found myself even worse. Like, I'd have been on that hamster wheel. And because I have these things, I'm not on that hamster wheel. The last thing I want to discuss, excuse me, I have a tickle in my throat, is one of the biggest things that I think is really, really important is the importance of forgiving yourself for those money decisions. Um, and I'm talking about the money decisions that may not have always turned out to be the best money decisions. And if there's a piece of advice that you would give my listeners as to that and the importance of that, what piece of advice would you give?
Oh, feel the feelings. Let yourself feel all the things that you need to feel about it, but don't get stuck there. You will be on a hamster wheel blaming yourself and feeling bad if you don't eventually let it go. But you need to feel it and look at it and understand, why did you feel, because it's showing you something. That guilt, that shame is there for you and can help you, give you clues into the next level for you. And I think it's really important as part of that process when you're forgiving yourself, that you need to acknowledge that this is where you are. This is where you came from. Doesn't mean it needs to stay that way. Give yourself grace, give yourself some compassion for the decisions that you made at the time, because they were the best decision you could make given what you knew in the moment. And maybe hindsight is always very clear, right? Like 5, 10 years later, you're going to be looking at it from a completely different perspective. You have learned new things. You are a different person. It's not fair to compare the experience of today versus the experience of 5 or 10 years ago. It's okay to acknowledge that. And it's okay to acknowledge you needed help. And that, in the case of the bankruptcy, this is the road that I chose based on what I knew and where I was at the time. Would I make that same choice today? I don't know that I would, but that's okay, because I'm different. I'm looking at it from a completely different lens and perspective now.
Right. And I can say that even looking at it from a different perspective now, is the answer is yes, I would. I would still make that same decision based even off of what I know now and knowing the current situation that I was in at that time. That was the best decision. Was it a decision I liked? Absolutely not. However, would I have made different decisions that maybe wouldn't have put me in that position? I don't know. Again, maybe, maybe not. And again, it doesn't make sense to compare how you'd make your decisions now compared to what you did 5, 10 years ago. And I'm going to add something else to this. And I hope you'll take this too, Elizabeth. Um, Also, don't beat yourself up for a money decision that you made yesterday just in the
Oh
moment.
yeah.
Okay. You're still going to make mistakes. You're still, there's gonna be those emotional spending. There's gonna be those rational, I'm not spending this and keeping on the side. And then later going, it went up $300. I wish I would have done that. And okay, you can easily get on a hamster wheel and start beating yourself up over that too. Trust me. Don't do that. Instead, look at it and go, okay, why did I make the decision I made?
Yeah.
Was it from a place of my gut told me no, this was not the right time to do it? Or your heart, whichever one is the one you listen to. Mine's my gut. That's my gut, um, is is what I'm supposed to listen to. And or was it from a scarcity? Now, you don't have to be honest with me. You don't have to be honest with anybody else. Honestly, you don't have to. And be honest with yourself when you ask yourself that question. because that's how you're going to be able to learn. That's how you're going to be able to look at it and go, okay, you know what? Subconsciously, I was afraid. I had that scarcity moment and I made that decision. Okay, great. Now, don't beat yourself up over it. Journal, start listening to meditation that's about abundance, whatever is in your toolbox, so that you can help shift that and learn from it. And when I say journal, brain dump all the reasons why you made the decision and get it
Yep.
all out so that you can look at it and go, that's just utter nonsense. None of those stories are true.
Yes.
Great. Now flip the page and write all the ones that are true so that you're retraining your brain to remember. And then the next time when you go to make that decision, you can say, okay, you know what? Let me make sure this is coming from a place of not scarcity, but mindfulness of this is really what I want. Now, are you going to always make the perfect decision? No. Again, we are human. There is no such thing. Okay. Um, and if we do it this way, though, and we look at the decisions we make and we own up to the reasons why we end up making that decision. And now, you know what? Okay. That was me making a decision because I was afraid that I couldn't trust myself with doing this. Okay. That means there's some little bit deeper layers, like you talk about. Remember those the another layer. My coach calls it deeper layers of the thing. So we went to a certain layer. Now we got to
Yep.
go deeper. That's going through those, and I'm sharing that because I just went literally been doing that the last 6 months because all the things that were coming up, layers came up, and I'm like, I've already worked through all this. Why is this coming up? Yeah, I haven't worked all the way down into that deeper layer. So we will, coach, you got to go down on a deeper layer. I'm like,
Right. And then we look and we roll our eyes and
fine.
we're like, fine. Like
Yeah,
the little toddler foot
that's
stomp.
exactly what I did.
Yep.
I was like, okay, can I throw a temper tantrum first and then we can do it? Because this is not making me
Right.
happy at all. Um, and you realize as you go through it, oh, this is why we need to go down this deeper layer. Because there were shifts that need to be made and shifts that the universe is wanting you to make in your up leveling that you wouldn't have seen
Mhm.
if you wouldn't have done that. And you learn to look at those decisions and own up and go, okay, how would I do it differently if it was to happen tomorrow? What did I
Yep.
learn? That's the biggest thing, is take them as learning experiences, not beating yourself up as mistakes. Because when we take them as learning experiences and we use it to help further us and better us and keep working on that mindset, then we get a lot further a lot quicker. And the same goes as that could be going, you know what? There's been a lot of these. I need to get help, whether it's a life coach, whether it's a wealth coach or a CFO, or like my clients with me, they're like, I want the wealth coach and the CFO in one. Whatever that is, business coach, whatever, go and ask for help, because having help, let me just tell you, gets you a lot further,
Sure
a lot
does.
quicker. And I think that's really, really important. So, what I want you, my sassy friend, to take away from this episode is the importance of forgiving yourself on those money decisions, the importance of not beating yourself up for some of the decisions you had to make, whether it was 5 years, 10 years ago, or even now. If it's the best decision for you now, then that's okay. The key is that you can change that money story. You can take it and go, okay, this doesn't define me. This doesn't make me who I am. Yes, I had to make this decision, and I'm going to turn the page and write a new money story. And as Elizabeth says, you can dance through that fear and get to the life that you want to live. And I think that's just like God, I love that. That's just the biggest takeaway. I really do. I love that. That is the biggest takeaway. So, Elizabeth, can you please tell the listeners what your free offer is that you're offering, just in case they're
Yes.
interested?
So if you go to thisiswhereyouPivot.com/chapter preview, there's the first chapter of This Is Where You Pivot, The Shift from Fear to Freedom is available there for you to download. It gives the origin story of the power to pivot, sort of where this message came from. And um, yeah, I start to share a little bit of my journey and my story with you so that you understand that you're not alone.
Awesome. Awesome. I love it. And don't worry, the link will be in the show notes. So make sure you go to that and you click on it and go get the chapter preview. I think I'm gonna go get it too because I just love the name of it. The name of
Thank you.
the book is totally awesome. Um Thank you so much, Elizabeth, for being on my show. And my sassy friend, until next time, remember to stay sassy.
Thank you so much.
Bye. Thanks for joining us this week on Cash and Sass. Check us out on social media and on our website at www.thesassywealthcoach.com, where you can download my free Money Story Start Guide. The website again is www.thesassywealthcoach.com. And as always, subscribe to the show to catch every new episode and leave us a review so we can continue to bring you fresh content. And remember, yes, it is possible to have sassy and sexy money. See you next week.